The small grocery store was busy that afternoon. People rushed in and out, grabbing last-minute items. The owner, a middle-aged man with sharp eyes, stood behind the counter, watching everyone carefully. He had been running this shop for years and trusted no one easily. A young woman walked in, holding a small bag. She looked tired, like she had just finished a long shift at work. She moved quietly between the aisles, picking up a few essentials, bread, milk, and some fruits. She didn't speak much, just nodded at the cashier as she placed her items on the counter. The owner eyed her suspiciously. Something about her made him uneasy. Maybe it was the way she kept glancing around or how she hesitated before paying. His mind started racing. Was she hiding something? As she handed him the money, his eyes dropped to her bag. It was slightly open, and he thought he saw something shiny inside, a chocolate bar, maybe? His heart pounded. Did she steal it? Without thinking, he grabbed her wrist. "Open your bag," he demanded, his voice loud and rough. The woman froze. Other customers turned to stare. Her face turned red with embarrassment. "Excuse me?" she asked, confused. "I said, open your bag," the owner repeated, tightening his grip. "I saw you take something." The woman's eyes widened. She couldn't believe what was happening. She had paid for everything, why was he accusing her? A man standing nearby stepped forward. "Hey, what's going on?" he asked, frowning. The owner didn't let go. "This woman stole from my store." The woman shook her head. "No, I didn't. I paid for everything." Her voice trembled. The owner didn't listen. He yanked the bag from her shoulder and turned it upside down, dumping everything onto the counter. The bread, the milk, her wallet, all spilled out. But there was no stolen item. Silence filled the store. The owner's face turned pale. He had made a mistake. The woman's hands shook as she picked up her things. Tears welled in her eyes. "I just wanted to buy some groceries," she whispered. The man who had stepped in earlier crossed his arms. "You should apologize," he said firmly. The owner swallowed hard. He didn't know what to say. His pride wouldn't let him admit he was wrong. Instead, he muttered, just go." The woman quickly gathered her things and hurried out, her head down. The other customers exchanged glances. Some looked angry, others disappointed. The air in the store felt heavy. Outside, the woman took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. She had never been treated like that before. It hurt. But little did she know, this was only the beginning. Because what happened next would shock everyone. The young woman walked quickly down the street, her hands still shaking. The humiliation burned inside her like a fire. She had only gone to the store to buy food, nothing more. But the way the owner had grabbed her, accused her, treated her like a criminal, it made her stomach twist. She reached her small apartment and closed the door behind her, leaning against it for a moment. The silence of the empty room made everything feel worse. She wasn't just upset, she was angry. Angry at the owner, angry at the people who just stood and watched, angry at herself for not speaking up more. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was her mother. She took a deep breath before answering, trying to steady her voice. "Hey, Ma," she said, forcing a lightness she didn't feel. "Did you get the groceries?" her mother asked. "I was thinking of making soup tonight." The woman glanced at the half-crushed bread and dented milk carton in her bag. Her throat tightened. "Yeah, I got them," she lied. But something happened. She told her mother everything. The accusation, the way the owner dumped her things, the stares from strangers. As she spoke, her voice cracked. Her mother was silent for a long moment. Then, softly, she said, "Baby, I'm so sorry." Those words almost broke her. She had been holding it together, but now tears spilled over. She wasn't just some random shopper, she was a person. A hardworking person who had never stolen anything in her life. "Why would he do that?" she whispered. "I didn't do anything wrong." Her mother sighed. "Some people just assume the worst. It's not right. It's never right." The woman wiped her face. She thought about all the times she had walked into that store before, how the owner had always watched her a little too closely. Had he always suspected her? Just because of how she looked? Just because she didn't smile enough? A knock at the door made her jump. She wasn't expecting anyone. "Ma, let me call you back," she said quickly. She peered through the peephole. It was the man from the store, the one who had stepped in when the owner accused her. Her heart pounded. What was he doing here? She opened the door just a crack. "Yes?" The man looked uneasy. "Hey, I wanted to make sure you were okay," he said. What happened back there wasn't right. She didn't know what to say. A stranger had followed her home? That should have scared her, but something in his face told her he wasn't a threat. "I'm fine," she said, though it wasn't true. The man hesitated. "I filmed it," he admitted. "The whole thing. I didn't know if you'd want to do anything about it. But I thought you should have the video, just in case." Her breath caught. He had recorded it. That changed everything. She opened the door a little wider. "Can I see it?" The man handed her his phone. The video was clear, the owner's harsh voice, the way he grabbed her, the moment he dumped her bag and found nothing. Watching it made her feel sick, but also something else. Power. Proof. She looked up at the man. "Thank you," she said quietly. He nodded. That guy shouldn't get away with treating people like that. She didn't know what she would do with the video yet. But for the first time since walking into that store, she didn't feel helpless. And that was dangerous for the owner. Because the truth was about to explode. The woman sat on her couch, staring at the video on the stranger's phone. Her own face looked back at her, wide-eyed, humiliated, frozen in shock as the store owner accused her. Watching it made her chest ache, but she couldn't look away. "Do you mind if I send this to myself?" she asked quietly. The man nodded. "It's yours. Do whatever you think is right." After he left, she played the video again and again. Each time, the owner's voice cut deeper. "I saw you take something." The way he grabbed her wrist. The way everyone in the store just watched. Her fingers hovered over her phone screen. Should she post it? Part of her wanted to forget the whole thing, just move on. But another part, a fiercer part, burned with the need for people to see what happened. She took a deep breath and uploaded the video to social media. Her caption was simple. "This is what happened to me today. Have you ever been treated like this?" Then she put her phone down and tried to distract herself. She didn't expect much to happen. Maybe a few likes. Maybe a comment or two. She was wrong. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Notifications poured in, hundreds, then thousands. The video had been shared over and over, flooding timelines far beyond her small circle. People were angry. "This is disgusting. How dare he treat her like that? Name and shame the store." Comments exploded with stories from others who'd faced similar treatment, wrongly accused, followed in stores, treated like criminals for no reason. The woman read them with a lump in her throat. She wasn't alone. Then came the messages from strangers. "I live near that store. I won't shop there again. My cousin works at the news station, can we share your story? You should sue." Her hands trembled. This was bigger than she'd imagined. Meanwhile, at the store. The owner wiped down the counter, grumbling to himself. Business had been slow all evening. Fewer customers than usual. Then his teenage employee rushed in from the back room, phone in hand. "Boss, you need to see this." The owner squinted at the screen. And there it was, himself, red-faced and furious, grabbing a customer's wrist. The video had over 200,000 views. His stomach dropped. This is edited," he snapped, though he knew it wasn't. She was stealing. The camera just didn't catch it. The employee didn't answer. Just gave him a look that said, "You're in trouble." The owner's phone rang. A reporter. Then another. He ignored them, but his hands shook as he locked the store early. Outside, a group of people had gathered, not customers. Protesters. Holding signs. "Apologize to her. We boycott racist stores." His face burned. This couldn't be happening. The woman's doorbell rang. A news crew stood outside, asking for an interview. She hesitated. Did she want to be the face of this story? But then she thought of the owner's sneer. The way he'd assumed the worst of her. She opened the door. "Yes," she said. "I'll talk." Because this wasn't just about her anymore. And the owner? He had no idea what was coming next. The morning after the video went viral, the woman woke up to a flood of messages. News outlets, influencers, even a civil rights organization had reached out. Her hands trembled as she scrolled. This wasn't just a local story anymore. It had spread like wildfire. She agreed to one live TV interview, sitting stiffly under the bright studio lights. The interviewer leaned forward, sympathy in her eyes. "Tell us what happened in your own words," she said gently. The woman took a breath. She described the exhaustion of her long shift, the simple need for groceries, the shock of being accused. But when she mentioned how the owner had looked at her, that flicker of suspicion before he even spoke, her voice wavered. It wasn't just about the stealing, she admitted. It was like, he already decided I was guilty before I did anything. The interviewer nodded. "And how did that make you feel?" The woman looked straight into the camera. Small. Across town, the store owner paced his empty shop. The usual morning crowd was nowhere to be seen. Instead, his phone buzzed non-stop, angry calls, Yelp reviews tanking his rating, even a call from his supplier questioning if he could still pay his bills. His teenage employee scrolled through comments on his phone. "They're saying you've done this before," he said bluntly. The owner's head snapped up. "What?" The kid turned the screen toward him. Dozens of comments from people claiming they'd been falsely accused in his store over the years. A woman said he'd called security on her teenage son for loitering when he was just waiting for a ride. Another said he'd followed her around the aisles, insisting she had items hidden in her stroller. The owner's face flushed. "Those are lies. I never." But then he paused. Had he? Over the years, he'd certainly kept an eye on certain customers more than others. But that was just good business, wasn't it? A rock suddenly crashed through the front window. Glass shattered across the floor. The employee jumped back. "We need to close, man. Now." Online, the story took on a life of its own. A local journalist uncovered records showing the store owner had called police on shoplifters 27 times in the past year, but only 3 arrests were made. A former cashier messaged the woman privately, "He told us to watch certain types of people closer. I quit because it felt wrong." Then came the photo. Posted by an anonymous account, it showed the owner at a community meeting years ago, arguing against a homeless shelter being built near his store. "It'll bring the wrong element," the caption quoted him saying. The woman stared at the image. This wasn't just about her anymore. This was a pattern. That evening, an older woman stood on her doorstep, well-dressed, holding a binder. "I'm with the Neighborhood Business Association," she said. "We'd like to offer our support." The woman hesitated. "Support?" The visitor handed her a card. "Legal help, if you want it. Or just a platform to speak. What happened to you? It's happened to too many people." For the first time, the woman wondered, could this actually change something? But across town, the store owner was making calls of his own. To a lawyer. To the local news. And to someone else, a voice on the phone that growled, "Don't worry. We'll flip this." Because the backlash was only beginning. The store owner sat in his dimly lit back office, the glow of his laptop casting shadows across his face. The news article on the screen made his stomach churn. Local grocer faces boycott after viral accusation, customers demand accountability. He picked up his phone and dialed a number he hadn't called in years. After 3 rings, a gruff voice answered. "You're in deep trouble, huh?" The owner clenched his jaw. "I need your help." The man on the other end chuckled. "Always do. Meet me in an hour." Meanwhile, the woman sat in a small cafe with the representative from the Neighborhood Business Association. Papers were spread across the table, petitions, media requests, even an offer from a civil rights group to share her story at an upcoming rally. "You don't have to decide anything today," the woman said gently. "But your voice matters. People are listening." The young woman stirred her coffee, watching the steam rise. A week ago, she was just trying to buy groceries. Now, strangers looked at her with admiration, or pity. She wasn't sure which felt worse. "I just wanted an apology," she murmured. "Not all this." The representative leaned forward. "Sometimes, an apology isn't enough. Sometimes, things need to change." Outside the cafe window, a TV in an electronics store played the local news. The woman's own face flashed on the screen, her interview from yesterday. She took a deep breath. "What would I even say at a rally?" The representative smiled. "The truth." In a back booth of a dingy diner, the owner slid an envelope across the table to a heavy-set man with a camera slung around his neck. "Find something," the owner hissed. "Anything. A speeding ticket, an old argument, I don't care. Just make her look bad." The man pocketed the envelope without counting the cash inside. "Everyone's got skeletons. Even your innocent shopper." 2 hours later, the first post appeared on a local gossip forum. "Viral victim has history of confrontations, neighbors speak out." The article cited unnamed sources claiming the woman had temper issues and once argued with a delivery driver. The comments section exploded with speculation. "See? She's probably lied before. Why's everyone believing her so fast?" The owner smirked as he refreshed the page. This was how the game was played. Her phone buzzed with a link to the article. As she read, her chest tightened. The claims were vague, exaggerated, but what if people believed them? Her roommate scowled at the screen. "This is bull. That delivery guy overcharged you, and you politely corrected him." "But that's not what the article says," the woman whispered. Her roommate grabbed her shoulders. "Hey! Don't let them twist this. You know what happened in that store." The woman nodded, but that night, she lay awake staring at the ceiling. Was she ready for this fight? The next morning, an elderly man shuffled into the empty grocery store. The owner tensed, another protester? But the man placed a wrinkled hand on the counter. "I've shopped here 20 years, he said quietly. "You gave my granddaughter free candy when she was little." The owner blinked. I remember." The old man sighed. "What happened with that young woman? That wasn't you." "The man I knew would have apologized." The owner opened his mouth, to argue, to explain, but no words came. For the first time, shame crept in. That evening, 2 voicemails waited for the woman. This is Channel 7 News. We'd love to interview you about the backlash to your story. This is attorney Mark Sutton. The store owner is willing to discuss a settlement. She deleted both. Then she dialed the neighborhood association. About that rally. I'll do it. Because this was never just about her. And the owner? He stood in his crumbling store, staring at the security camera footage from that day, finally noticing what he'd missed before. The morning of the rally dawned gray and drizzly, but the weather didn't stop the crowd from gathering in the small park across from the grocery store. Over 100 people stood holding handmade signs, "Dignity over suspicion" and "We deserve respect." The woman stood at the edge of the stage, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. The neighborhood association representative squeezed her shoulder. Ready? She wasn't. But she stepped up to the microphone anyway. At first, her voice shook. I never thought buying groceries would change my life. A few people chuckled nervously. She took a breath. But what happened in that store wasn't just about me. It was about how some people are treated like criminals before they've even done anything. She told them about the way the owner's eyes had tracked her the second she walked in. About the crushing shame when he dumped her bag in front of everyone. And then, her voice growing stronger, she read aloud some of the hundreds of messages she'd received from others who'd faced the same treatment. A woman in the crowd shouted, "That happened to my son last year." A man nodded fiercely. Same at the pharmacy downtown. The energy in the crowd shifted, from sympathy to solidarity. Inside the store, the owner watched through the blinds as the crowd grew. His teenage employee stood beside him, arms crossed. "You should go out there," the kid said suddenly. The owner whirled on him. "And do what? Get torn apart?" The kid shrugged. "Or apologize." A long silence. Then the owner stormed into the back room. Just as the woman finished speaking, a commotion erupted at the back of the crowd. 3 men in matching jackets pushed their way forward, one holding up a phone on live video. "This rally is based on lies," one shouted. "She's making the owner look bad for clout." The crowd erupted in boos. The woman froze, until the elderly man who'd visited the store stepped in front of the hecklers. "I've known that grocer for decades," he said calmly. "And what he did was wrong." The protesters hesitated. The crowd began chanting, "Shame! Shame!" Security escorted the men out as reporters snapped photos. The woman exhaled. This was spiraling beyond anything she'd imagined. Back in his office, the owner finally did what he should have done days ago. He pulled up the full security footage from that day. Minute by minute, he watched. The woman entering, exhausted. Himself watching her too closely. The moment he grabbed her, then froze. Because now, in the corner of the screen, he saw what he'd missed. A different customer, a man in a baseball cap, slipping a bottle of whiskey into his jacket just aisles away. The owner's blood ran cold. That was the shiny object he'd thought he'd seen in her bag. A reflection from across the store. He'd accused the wrong person. The woman was packing up her notes when a commotion near the stage made her look up. The store owner stood there, drenched in rain, his face ashen. The crowd fell silent. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Then he said 2 words that changed everything. "I'm sorry." Not to the crowd. Not to the cameras. Just to her. The crowd seemed to hold its breath as the store owner stood in the rain, his apology hanging in the air. The woman stared at him, searching his face for any hint of deception. But all she saw was exhaustion, the same kind she'd felt since that day in his store. Before she could respond, a reporter shoved a microphone between them. "Is this a public apology? Will you be compensating her?" The owner flinched but didn't back down. "I was wrong," he said, louder this time. I made a mistake, and I'm sorry. The crowd murmured. Some people nodded, others scowled, arms crossed. One voice shouted, "Too little, too late." The woman held up a hand for silence. "Can we talk? Alone?" They sat on a park bench away from the crowd, the owner's shoulders hunched under his damp jacket. "I watched the security footage," he admitted. "There was a shoplifter that day, just not you." She stiffened. "So you're only sorry because you saw proof?" "No." He rubbed his face. "I'm sorry because I've been careless for years. Jumping to conclusions. Treating good people like suspects." He met her eyes. "But seeing that footage, realizing how badly I messed up, it shook me." She studied him. "What happens now?" He exhaled. "I'll make it right. Train my staff better. Donate to causes that help with this stuff. Whatever you think is fair." For the first time, she considered the possibility that his remorse was real. By evening, the apology was everywhere. News headlines blared. "Store owner admits mistake at protest, will shoppers forgive him?" Online, opinions split violently. "He only apologized because he got caught. People deserve second chances." What if she'd been arrested? Would he still be sorry? The woman's inbox flooded with new messages, some praising her grace, others accusing her of letting him off easy. Her hands shook as she typed a single post. This was never about revenge. It was about accountability. Today, he took a step toward that. "I hope he keeps going." She turned off her phone. The whirlwind wasn't over, but she needed air. At a rundown apartment across town, the man in the baseball cap from the security footage laughed at the news. "Dumbass owner screwed himself over for nothing." His roommate frowned. "That lady almost got arrested because of you." The thief shrugged. "Not my problem." He pulled out the stolen whiskey, now half empty, and took a swig. Then his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "We know it was you. Security footage is crystal clear. Police have it too." The color drained from his face. Back at the store, the owner faced his employees, all three of them. "From now on," he said hoarsely, "we treat every customer with respect. No profiling. No accusations without proof." The teenage employee raised an eyebrow. "And if we see someone steal?" The owner paused. "We handle it politely. And we never assume the person next to them is guilty too." As he locked up that night, he noticed a note taped to the door. "Apology accepted. But we're watching the Neighbors for Justice." It wasn't forgiveness. But it was a start. She sat on her fire escape, watching the sunset. Her roommate handed her a mug of tea. "You okay?" She smiled faintly. "Yeah. It's just weird. Feels like it should be bigger, you know? Some huge victory or crushing defeat. But it's just people being messy." Her roommate nudged her. "You did win." He admitted he was wrong. "That's rare." She sipped her tea. Maybe the victory wasn't in headlines or payouts, but in one man finally seeing her as a person. And maybe, just maybe, seeing himself clearly too. The rain had stopped, but the air still carried the weight of what had happened. The woman sat at her kitchen table, staring at the legal papers in front of her. The store owner had offered a settlement, enough to cover her missed wages from the days she'd been too shaken to work, plus a public donation to a racial justice organization. Her finger traced the edge of the document. It was fair. More than fair, really. But something still gnawed at her. Across town, the owner knelt on the floor of his shop, scrubbing graffiti off the front window. The words "bigot" and "we remember" were etched in spray paint. His hands were raw, but he kept scrubbing. Neither of them knew the storm wasn't over yet. The man in the baseball cap, the real shoplifter, stumbled out of a bar at 2 a.m., the stolen whiskey long gone. He fumbled for his keys, muttering to himself about that idiot grocer and his dumb viral drama. What he didn't notice was the police cruiser parked across the street. What he really didn't notice was the half-empty bottle of expensive vodka peeking out from his jacket pocket, stolen from another store just hours before. The officer did. "Sir," the cop called, stepping out of the car. "Mind if I ask where you got that?" The thief's bloodshot eyes widened. He ran. He made it exactly 6 steps before tripping over his own untied shoelaces. The next morning, the owner got a call from the police. They had the thief in custody, and they needed the full, unedited security footage from that day for evidence. As he copied the files, something else caught his eye. A timestamp from 1 week earlier. He clicked play. The screen showed a familiar scene, the thief slipping a bottle into his jacket, but this time, the owner had seen him. Watched him do it. Even followed him to the door. Then, inexplicably, let him walk away. The owner's stomach turned. He'd recognized the thief that day. Known he was trouble. But the thief was the nephew of a local politician, someone who'd made problems disappear for the owner in the past. So he'd looked the other way. And then, when he'd been itching to catch someone, he'd targeted the first person who'd seemed like an easy suspect. The hypocrisy tasted like bile. She signed the settlement papers, but added a single condition, a face-to-face meeting with the owner, no lawyers, no cameras. They met in the same park where the rally had been. "You could have taken me for everything," he admitted. "Why didn't you?" She watched kids playing on the swings. "Because I don't want your money. I want to know this won't happen again, to me, to anyone." He told her about the footage. About the thief's connections. About his own cowardice. She wasn't surprised. Just tired. "So what now?" He handed her a flash drive. "Everything. Unedited. If you want to take it public, I won't stop you." She weighed it in her palm, then handed it back. "No. You release it. You own it. That's how this ends." 2 days later, the owner posted the full story online, the thief's history, his own complicity, the real reason he'd been so quick to accuse her. The internet exploded, but not how he'd expected. Comments poured in. "Damn. This is the most honest thing I've ever seen a business owner do. We all have stuff we're ashamed of. Respect for owning it." Meanwhile, the thief faced not just shoplifting charges, but a lawsuit from the politician uncle he'd name-dropped for years. "You embarrassed our family. You're on your own." The woman walked into the grocery store, newly renamed, with fresh paint and a "zero tolerance for profiling" sign by the door. The owner nodded at her from behind the register. No suspicion. No fear. Just a quiet understanding. She grabbed a basket. And for the first time in weeks, she just shopped.